Welcome back to MTG Burgeoning. That's your channel for all things magic. Today, our Up and Up series returns as we take a look at Sisay, Weatherlight Captain, and some upgrades to her Enchantments-Matter deck. What's up, MTG That is the MTG Burgeoning community. Welcome back to another installment of our Up and Up series. Today, we're going to update and upgrade Sisay, Weatherlight Captain, and her Enchantments-Matter deck. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty brought us a new host of enchantments to jam into the 99 of this deck, in addition to a couple of other non-Kamigawa cards that are going to make an appearance. So with so many cards going in and so many cards going out, with so many reasons behind each decision, let's get right to it right now. We are going to include the entire cycle of the new shrines. They are Go Shinteis. They are another shrine cycle. The very first shrine cycle appeared in original Kamigawa. Those were 5. The next shrine cycle, as Sanctums, appeared in Core Set 2021, and they were 6 for a total of 11. Well, now we're going to add 6 more. And this cycle of shrines are a bit different because these are now legendary enchantment creatures. Each of the previous 11 shrines in Magic's existence, they were just enchantments. So this is going to give us a little bit more versatility as it comes to our shrines. Additionally, as every previous shrine to the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty bunch, they were automatic triggers that happened either at the beginning of the upkeep or at the end of the upkeep. Actually, I think they were all at the beginning now that I think about it. This one, however, this is not an automatic. We have to pay for it. So each one of these shrines make us pay 1 generic mana in order to get its trigger, which that's not going to be a problem because we'll have a floating mana every single time. So let's get through quickly what the first 6 shrines are going to do in this deck. This is the white one. It's Go Shinteis of Shared Purpose. It's a 1/3 vigilant creature. And at the beginning of our end step, we may pay that 1 generic mana. And if we do, we're going to create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token for each shrine we control. Now, unfortunately, this is not these are not spirits that fly. They are going to dwell on the ground. But that's okay, because with the number of shrines we're going to have, having a number of chump blockers or just being able to send wave after wave of spirit tokens at our opponents, Go Shinteis of Shared Purpose is going to help the synergy of this deck a lot more than the card it's going to replace. Additionally, this is just another version of Honden of Life's Web, which is the original green shrine, which did the exact same thing by putting spirit tokens into play, minus a generic mana activation, and at the beginning of the upkeep. Next, we have the blue shrine, which is Go Shinteis of Lost Wisdom. This is an 0/4 flying shrine for 1 and a blue. We're going to pay that 1 generic mana at the beginning of our end step, and if we do, target player mills X cards, where X is the number of shrines we control. Well, I don't exactly know how many times we're going to activate the mill ability here, because let's face it, this is not a deck that is a dedicated mill deck. This is more of a peripheral effect, and it would take a ginormous amount of resources to get us to the point where we're able to actually mill an opponent. So more than anything, because of the lackluster ability here on this shrine, its inclusion is because it's a shrine, and it's going to help all of our other shrines become more powerful. And we're going to see that that's going to be something that we're going to say more than 1 time during this video. Next up, we have Go Shinteis of Hidden Cruelty. It's a 2/2 Death Toucher for 3 and a black. And then when we pay that 1 generic mana at the beginning of our end step, we can destroy target creature with toughness X or less, where X is the number of shrines we control. This could be really out of hand. This is the first shrine in all of the shrines in Magic's history, totaling 17 now. This is the first shrine that's going to destroy target creature, as long as we have, shrines outnumbering the creature's toughness. We've been able to deal damage to creatures, but this is the first straight-up destroy creature shrine, and this may be one of the most valuable new inclusions of this entire video. Next, we have Go Shintai of Ancient Wars. It's a 2/2 first striker for 2 and a red. And at the beginning of our end step, we'll pay that 1 generic mana, and this will deal X damage to target player or planeswalker, where X is the number of shrines we control. Now, it doesn't help with any creature removal, so that's a bit of a kick in the onions, just because previous red shrines helped us to manage the board state much more than Go Shintai does. I do wish this was to any target, like the original red shrine, but we gotta put it in there because it is a shrine, and because it's going to help make our other shrines more powerful, because we'll have shrines in numbers. Plus, doing damage straight to the face or to a pesky or troublesome planeswalker, well, that's going to be beneficial at times too. All right, so if you're following the color pie chart there, you know that the next shrine we have is our Go Shintai Green Shrine. And that's going to be Go Shintai of Boundless Vigor, a 1/1 trampler. At the beginning of our end step, if we pay 1, we put a +1/+1 counter on target shrine for each shrine we control. So that's going to be an interesting set of circumstances here, because at this moment, this is the 5th creature shrine that we're including. So it's going to be a little difficult to put any +1/+1 counters on any other shrine other than Boundless Vigor. But still, if we've got 4 shrines in play, this is going to get 4 +1/+1 counters, and suddenly that 1/1 trample for 1 and a green mana is going to get really out of control. And the 6th shrine to make an appearance from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and going into the 99. I stress going into the 99 for a reason, and we're going to get back to that. And that's going to be Go Shintai of Life's Origin. It is another enchantment creature shrine. It's 3/4 for 3 and a green. We can pay WUBRG colors to return target enchantment card from our graveyard to the battlefield. Very, very powerful recursive ability here in a deck that's supporting a massive number of enchantments. But we're not done. Whenever Go Shintai of Life's Origin or another non-token shrine enters the battlefield under our control, we create a 1/1 colorless shrine enchantment creature token. So these shrine enchantment creature tokens are going to pile up in numbers and allow our other shrines to become more powerful, because we'll have shrines in numbers. Again, we'll have additional targets for Go Shintai of Boundless Vigor's +1/+1 counters. And Go Shintai of Life's Origin is going to make this deck so much better being in the 99. Again, I stress that a second time, and these are the reasons why. A lot of people want to make this the commander of your shrine deck. I am saying that is a mistake. Go Shintai of Life's Origin is better in the 99 than it is as the commander. Sisay is a better option than Go Shintai of Life's Origin as a commander in a dedicated shrine/enchantment build, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why I believe that. For Go Shintai's ability to recur an enchantment from the graveyard to the battlefield, we need to have enchantments in the battlefield. We need to have enchantments in the graveyard. That may not always be the case. And if we have Go Shintai just sitting out there, we are unable to activate its recursive ability. For the same amount of mana, that WUBRG mana, we can activate Sisay's ability and tutor out any of our shrines right from our library right onto the battlefield into play, as long as its converted mana cost is equal to or less than Sisay's power. Sisay starts as a 2, and as we've already seen, we have 2 shrines that are going into this deck that have a CMC of 2, and she gets +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents. All of our shrines are legendary permanents, so we're going to have more targets for Sisay's ability than we would for Go Shintai's. Additionally, we have to tap Go Shintai in order to have its recursive ability. We do not have to tap Sisay. So we can construct a mana base that allows us to take advantage of creating additional mana to utilize Sisay's ability more than once per turn, which is all we could really do with Go Shintai outside of including some peripheral on-tap effects and spells. For me, Sisay is the dominant general between the two of them. Go Shintai is better in the 99. If it goes to the graveyard, we have numerous ways to get it back into our hand. We have numerous ways to get it back from the graveyard to our battlefield. Those are all already included in the 99. Go Shintai's ETB trigger is powerful, particularly in a dedicated shrine build. However, with 16 other shrines at our disposal and a number of ways that we can tutor them out of our library and get them right into play, one of them being from the general of this deck, I still maintain that Go Shintai is more valuable in the 99 with Sisay as the general. And that's why I took the time to explain my reasoning behind that. Her abilities to get shrines out of the library into play are better than what Go Shintai of Life's Origin does. All right, with that being said, we're including 6 shrine creatures. So if we're including 6 enchantment creatures that are helping to turn this deck into more of a dedicated shrine build, then we need to take out a balanced number of other quote-unquote enchantment creatures so that we can keep the focus of enchantments in this deck while making the overall theme stronger of shrines. These are the 6 enchantment creatures that are coming out in place of these 6 shrines. The first is going to be Pharika, God of Afflictions. Pharika was really included just because it was a god, because it was a legendary enchantment creature and one that Sisay could tutor out if needed to, if we needed to exile some cards from other opponents' graveyards, which we're going to address later in this video. Pharika was one of the last gods, was one of the last legendary enchantment gods included in this deck, so it makes sense that it's one of the first ones to come out. It does not give us a great deal of power. I mean, if we are going to exile a creature card from our own graveyard, do we really want to do that when we're exiling one of our gods just for the purpose of creating a 1/1 black and green snake enchantment creature token? Any one of the shrines on our left there is a better addition to the 99 than Pharika. And the same can be said about Thassa, Deep Dwelling. It's a 6/5. We can tap down another creature. However, its blink ability that happens at the beginning of our end step, it does nothing to help anything we have going in this deck. We have nothing that's ETBs outside of potential synergies with Go Shintai of Life's Origin and having another shrine come into play. However, that's a little bit of a fragile reason to include a card in the 99 just to help support the potential synergy of one other card. So Thassa is going to come out as a way in which to include one of the shrines that will make the overall shrine synergies that much stronger. Another god coming out is going to be Nylea. Now, Nylea is a 6/6 and gives other creatures we control trample. However, her inclusion originally was a way in which to one-shot opponents with a mass tutoring of the World Tree, getting all of the gods into play with haste for a one-and-done combat win. However, now that we're including the shrines and taking out some of the other gods, it no longer makes sense to keep a god in the deck that gives other creatures we control trample, where combat is no longer one of our primary win conditions. So in order to make room for one of the shrines, we're going to take out one of the creatures that give other creatures trample and can give target creature +2/+2 until end of turn. Because we're shifting away from combat to more of an effect win through the use of our 17 different shrines. Nylea 1.0 was coming out, and so is Nylea 2.0. Now, this one is a little harder to justify because it does allow us to cast 6 of our shrines at a reduced cost. However, with the way that this deck is sculpted, we are not casting most of these enchantments. We are getting most of these enchantments into play from other effects and abilities. So to have Nylea Keen-Eyed in the deck originally, it was great to get our gods into play cheaper and to get the gods into our hand from its activated ability of 2 and a green at the bottom of her card. However, now that we're replacing so many of the creatures with the shrines, even though they are creatures themselves, again, we're not really looking to cast our shrines. We're looking more to get them into play from other effects. So including Nylea over one of the shrines just does not do service to what we're trying to do by making the shrines the focus of the deck. A lot of what we said about Nylea Keen-Eyed can be applied to Iroas, God of Victory. This is going to give creatures we control menace, and whenever our creatures are attacking, we prevent all damage that would be dealt to them. But again, we're stepping more away from the combat of this deck to focus more on the activated abilities of our shrines to deliver us victory. So to pull out Iroas in place of one of the shrines makes a lot of sense from a shrine synergistic standpoint. And the last of the gods for this first 6 changes is going to be Perforos Bronze-Blooded. This is going to give other creatures we control haste, which was the primary reason why it was included in this deck. Even its ability to pay 2 and a red to put a red creature card or an artifact card from our hand onto the battlefield, that was never in any use for the 99 of this deck or for any of the schematic purposes of what we were trying to do. Perforos was to be included to give other creatures we control haste as a way in which all gods could come into play and attack after sacrificing the World Tree. Now that we're stepping away from doing that, Perforos Bronze-Blooded no longer has a viable role in this deck. All right, those are the first 6 changes. Those were all some cards that were just awesome cards that came right from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. And we're not done with Kamigawa yet. We're going to get back to that wonderful stuff. But first, we got a few other cards that we're going to include as a way in which to put more of a focus and make a greater optimization of Sisay's ability and exactly what we're trying to do. Nyx Bloom Ancient is going in. It fits the enchantment theme by being an enchantment creature, plus it allows us to triple the mana whenever we tap a permanent for it. So can you imagine just tapping enough mana to activate Sisay's ability once, and then Nyx Bloom Ancient is there, and suddenly, oh, okay, let's activate it 3 times. Nyx Bloom Ancient is going to allow us to utilize Sisay's ability to great frequency to make it even quicker and to end the games quicker. Next up, we're going to include a copy of Eerie Ultimatum. Just in case there's anyone at the EDH table who's playing with mass enchantment or mass non-land permanent destruction, putting in a copy of Eerie Ultimatum, particularly if we have Ghost Shintai of Life's Origin in the graveyard as well, casting Eerie Ultimatum should make for a potentially game-ending play, particularly if our opponents have no responses for enchantments. Not many players, in my experiences, load up their decks with enchantment removal. Yes, a lot could be said for permanent removal and things like that. However, if we're playing all enchantments or very close to it, we want to make sure that we can get those enchantments from our graveyard back into play in mass. And Eerie Ultimatum is going to let us do that. Next up, we have Sanctum Weaver. This is another enchantment creature. This is from Modern Horizons 2. It's 1 and a green. We can tap it to add X mana of any one color, where X is a number of enchantments we control. This is a Serra Sanctum that got with Command Tower and produced this creature. And we already have Serra Sanctum in the 99, so it makes sense that we would include this creature as well. We could really get ahead of our opponents by using the mana generated by Sanctum Weaver. Next spell is coming up is Enduring Ideal. This is a sorcery for 5 and double white. We search our library for an enchantment card and put it into play, and then we shuffle our library. However, for the rest of the game, we can't play spells, and at the beginning of each of our upkeeps, we copy the spell except for its epic ability. So this is one of those, are you sure? Do you feel good about it? Are you sure? Do you have Sisay in play? Is she well protected? Then I think it's safe to cast Enduring Ideal and make sure that you can pull an enchantment from your library at the beginning of every one of your turns. Getting this out in play, casting this during a game early enough without any interaction or counter magic, well, that would be enough to win the game as long as you pull out the right shrines at the start. Next up, in our return to Kamigawa, we have Weaver of Harmony. It is another enchantment creature. It's going to give other enchantment creatures we control +1/+1, which is not the primary reason why it's in this deck, but a pretty nice bonus considering how many enchantment creatures we have in the 99. It's a 2/2 for 1 and a green. The most important of its abilities is paying a green mana and tapping it to copy target activated or triggered ability we control from an enchantment source. For the purposes of this deck, Weaver of Harmony should read pay a green mana, tap, copy target activated or triggered ability from a shrine you control, because that's exactly what we're going to do with Weaver of Harmony. Can you imagine copying the Sanctum of All and searching your library for 2 instead of 1 of those oh so valuable enchantments? Weaver of Harmony is going to do a lot of work, and since it's also an enchantment creature, it's going to allow us to recur it from the graveyard because it most likely will be a lightning rod of attention. Second to last spell we're including is Extinguish All Hope, and here we're going to destroy all non-enchantment creatures. This is 4 and 2 black, of course. And what this is going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to rid the battlefield of all creatures. Some of them might be ours. There are a few creatures in the 99 that are non-enchantment creatures, so we could be taking a little bit of a hit. However, I reckon that our opponents will be taking even bigger ones, because even though we have a few non-enchantment creatures in the deck, we have more enchantment creatures than they do, including the 6 new shrines that are going into this deck. So Extinguish All Hope is a board wipe that will affect our opponents a lot more than it will affect us. And the last addition is going to be another card from Modern Horizons 2. It is Sithis Harvest's Hand. Another enchantment creature. It's 1/2 for Selesnya colors. Whenever we cast an enchantment spell, we gain 1 life and we draw a card. Now, I know I said earlier that most of the enchantments that we're getting into play are going to be through other purposes, through tutoring and other spells and effects. We will be getting more enchantments into play through those ways than casting them if the deck is working like it should. However, having Sithis in play as a backup, allowing us to gain some incidental life and draw a card each time we do cast an enchantment spell, her abilities are valuable enough for us to overstep the bounds of what we're trying to do by getting shrines and other enchantments into play, and making enough from and giving her enough space that if we have to cast them, that will be acceptable as well. Because remember, we also have a host of other enchantment creatures that we have to consider that we could cast from our hand as well. All right, so for those cards to come out, beginning with Nyx Bloom Ancient, here are the cards, for these cards that are going in, my mistake, we have to find some cards that are going to come out. And starting with Nyx Bloom Ancient, the card coming out is going to be Karametra, God of Harvests. Karametra was originally added to this deck as a way in which to ramp, because each time we cast a creature spell, we were able to search our library for a forest or plains card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. I believe that swapping out Karametra for the enchantment creature of Nyx Bloom Ancient allows us to get more mana quicker, and that's what we really want to do. Karametra is one that lets us build the mana base. With Nyx Bloom Ancient, it can come down and cause havoc immediately, and that's what we're really looking to do, particularly if we already have Sisay on the battlefield. So that was a pretty easy transition to get Karametra out and the Nyx Bloom Ancient in. All right, the god coming out for Eerie Ultimatum, that's going to be Erebus, God of the Dead. This one was a little tough to fit, and this was my reasoning. Erebus was originally included in this deck for a way in which we could draw cards, paying a white and or paying 1 and a black, pay 2 life to draw a card. So, I mean, if we're 4 cards in, we've invested 8 mana and 8 life to get 4 cards into our hand. I figure if we're going to do that, and that's not even including the original casting cost of Erebus if we were to cast it. So I figured if we're going to invest all that mana, why don't we just include Eerie Ultimatum? That way we have 1 card in our hand that allows us to put many, many cards from our graveyard right into play. Now, that's not putting cards into our hand, but what we want to do is to get those cards onto the battlefield eventually, if they're going to be in our hands, outside of there being spot or mass removal spells. So I thought Erebus coming out makes better sense than it's staying in, so that we can include Eerie Ultimatum to do a better job of what Erebus's original reasoning was for coming in. All right, next card up for Sanctum Weaver, our Serra Sanctum-like land. Altar of the Pantheon is going to come out. This was a mana rock. It costs 3. It was included in the deck as a way in which to help trigger the devotion of our gods, to make sure that when they came into play from the World Tree activation and sacrifice, that they were all online and able to attack right away. Since we're stepping away from doing that, it made sense to replace this as a very subpar mana rock, and replacing it with Sanctum Weaver is a huge step forward to what we're trying to do in this deck. All right, next up, replace to make room for Enduring Ideal, our epic sorcery. We're going to take out Enigmatic Incarnation. For this spell, we have this enchantment out on play, and it allowed us to sacrifice another enchantment at the beginning of our end step. And if we did, we would search our library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrifice enchantment's converted mana cost and put it onto the battlefield. That allowed us to continuously get one enchantment creature from our library by sacrificing another one. However, we didn't always want to sacrifice those creatures, so at times Enigmatic Incarnation just kind of sat out on the battlefield, not really doing much of anything. I thought by replacing this with Enduring Ideal, we're swapping out a more situational card with a potential win condition, and that's only going to make the deck stronger, and I think that transition really fits what we're trying to do in this deck with respect to the shrines. All right, for Weaver of Harmony. Weaver of Harmony was our tap a green or pay a green, tap it, copy target triggered or activated ability of a shrine of an enchantment source. For that card to go in, we're going to take out Sigil of the Empty Throne. This enchantment for 3 and 2 white. It's whenever we cast an enchantment spell, we create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. Again, we're not casting as many enchantment spells as we are getting them into play from our library, from our graveyard, and in other ways. So to have Weaver of Harmony come in to replace Sigil of the Empty Throne, it allows us to utilize her copy ability on our shrines to make the shrines more impactful, whereas Sigil of the Empty Throne, similar to Enigmatic Incarnation, it could sit out there on the battlefield and not do anything if we're not casting any enchantment spells. However, we're always going to be activating shrine abilities, so why not have Weaver of Harmony take the spot of Sigil of the Empty Throne as a way in which to optimize the shrine synergies that we have in the deck. Next up, for Extinguish All Hope to go in, we're going to take out Nico Eris. Nico Eris was originally included in this deck for 2 reasons. One, to give us the shard tokens, which were enchantments with tapped, which were pay 2, sacrifice this enchantment, scry 1 to draw a card. However, it was also included as a way in which to get rid of some creatures. Its -1 ability deals 2 damage to target tapped creature for each card we've drawn this turn. So, it's kind of spot removal, and it gives us, some enchantment shards that, let's be honest, they act as clues minus the ability to scry. To be more impactful, I thought including Extinguish All Hope as a mass board wipe for our opponents, much more than us, would create a level of impact far surpassing what Nico Eris could do. So in a lot of ways, replacing Nico Eris with a board wipe that affects our opponents more than it affects us, that just seems like a very easy choice to make. All right, and lastly, the last card coming out, and this card is to make way for Sithis, Harvest's Hand. The card coming out is going to be Crop Rotation. Crop Rotation was originally included in the 99 as a way in which to get the World Tree out onto the battlefield so that we can activate its ability and sacrifice it to get all of the gods from our library into play and attack our opponents in one fell swoop of hopefully winning combat damage. However, as we've already demonstrated so far in this Up and Up episode, we are disassembling that engine and focusing more on victory through our shrine activations. So although the World Tree is still included in the 99, because we're going to want to make sure that we can fix our mana as many ways as possible so that we can activate Sisay's ability without any fear of mana screw, Crop Rotation is going to come out because I sense that we no longer need that one land anymore, and this gets us the one land in exchange for one land. So to take out Crop Rotation to make way for Sithis, Harvest's Hand, which, let's be honest, could gain us multiple peripheral life and could draw us multiple cards. Plus, it's an enchantment, so we can get it from our grave. I mean, it's a legendary enchantment, so Sisay could tutor it out. We can get it from our graveyard without any problems. It's going to do more work in the newly revised deck than Crop Rotation would, and that's the reason why Sithis is in and Crop Rotation is out. And there you have it, MTGBC. This was quite an extensive installment of the Up and Up series. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty dropped a bombshell, and Sisay Weatherlight Captain was ready for those drops. And this is what we decided to do. We got 12 cards going in, we got 12 cards coming out, and a much more focused theme as to what we want to do in this deck. I look forward to hearing your assessment in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.